Hello and welcome to Chicago Entrepreneur. My name is Leon Loving and I'm your host. We want to thank you for having us in your home today. I have with me today my guest, Mr. Atukwe Newell, who is, are you president, founder, CEO?
I'm managing partner, but in a startup company, you're all of those things. So
all of the above.
There you go.
Okay. For UAS Properties.
That's right.
Mr. Newell, welcome to Chicago Entrepreneur.
Thank you.
Okay. Let's start out by you telling us a little bit about your background and how the startup UAS got its start.
Perfect.
UAS Properties got its start.
Sure. I want to start by thanking you, Leon, and thanking the viewers for paying attention to us today. UAS Properties has a very interesting start. Myself and a couple partners.
By the way, do the UAS, does that stand for anything in particular?
Sure. UAS is actually not an acronym. It actually is a word, WAS, and it's an Egyptian word. And at the time that my partners and I started the firm, we wanted in symbolism something that would represent a firm that would stand the test of time. So we looked and we found an Egyptian word. It actually means great power.
Okay.
So it's properly pronounced, it's WAS, but lots of people know us, lots of your viewers actually will know us as UAS Properties.
Okay.
But back to the starting of UAS Properties, myself and two partners at the time were undergraduate students at Stanford University out in California, and we were coming out of a company that, before UAS Properties, that we started together, which was an internet company, a dot-com company. Started it, raised a ton of money. This is back in the dot-com internet bubble era.
Sure.
And the market collapsed. We sold the company and gave back as much of our return to our investors as we could, and still had not yet graduated. But we're trying to figure out what our next steps were going to be. And we started investing
So you were undergrads?
Undergrads. I was living in a dorm room. When I started UAS Properties, I could not afford a plane ticket back to Chicago. So we were starving students, as they say.
Okay.
And we started buying small 2 to 4 unit apartment buildings in a neighboring community in Oakland, California. And we would use our student loan money and our school jobs and everything that we could in order to qualify for mortgages. And at that time, it was fairly easy to get a mortgage. And we started buying small apartment buildings in Oakland, California. And over a period of about 6 months, we all graduated. We all did, in fact, get very good paying jobs at the time. And on the side, we continued to invest in real estate together. And this happened over a course of about a year, and collectively we built a portfolio of about just under 30 units in about 8 small apartment complexes. And I remember a year after we bought our first building, my real estate agent at the time called me up and said he'd gotten an offer on our building. Now, we had not listed it for sale at that time.
Okay.
He called up and said he'd gotten an offer for our building, and it was for twice what we had paid for it 1 year earlier.
Okay.
And he said, you want to sell it? I said, yes. Sell it.
Something like yesterday.
As a matter of fact, sell everything we got. List it all. And we did just that. We listed everything we had for sale. And what we realized was, as a result of what had happened in technology, you had a lot of people that moved into the Silicon Valley area. So with a fixed amount of supply and a lot more demand, values went up. Right. And I'd love to say and tell the viewers that I had this great business plan and developed this super intricate strategy, but the reality was I was right in the right place at the right time, and I fortunately had enough sense to do something about it. And to make a long story short, we sold everything we had in Northern California. I took my part of the gains, and I invested in a portfolio in Chicago, and at the time a portfolio as well in Indianapolis, Indiana, and in Cincinnati, Ohio. Physically moved back to Chicago. I was born and raised in Chicago, and started buying here, slightly larger, but still started buying apartment buildings here. But now I was buying 8-unit buildings, 10-unit buildings, 12-unit buildings. And over a period of time, built a portfolio here, and really my background is in mechanical engineering. I never really intended to build a property management and leasing firm, but was not able to find a good quality property manager. I found, management firms that were really, really big. They had great websites. They had glossy brochures. They had downtown fancy office space. And I'd contract with them, and I'd go to my building, and the tenants are hanging out the window, screaming on the porch. I mean, the tenants are taking over the building.
They didn't manage.
They didn't. Nobody ever got out of their fancy office in downtown Chicago and drove to my building. So they didn't work. Then I found another type of property management firm that was just a realtor. Their main business was they were a realtor, and they moonlighted in property management. And so they had good people skills, and they had good rapport with the tenants, and they would be present at the property, but they were collecting thousands and thousands of dollars of my money every month, and all I got at the end of the month was a one-page document that said, here's where all your money went. And because they didn't have any administrative skills, they didn't have any back office, they didn't have any capacity for managing property, they just had people skills, that relationship didn't work. So what we did was built a property management company initially just to manage our own portfolio. Everything I owned was tied to these apartment buildings. My whole net worth was tied to the success or failure of these apartment buildings. So we built a management company.
Life was tied.
My whole life was tied to these. My whole financial life was tied to these apartment buildings. So we built a management company initially just to manage the apartment buildings that we owned.
Okay.
And inevitably, what would happen is we'd go in, we'd buy a 10-unit building, we'd get rid of a few irresponsible residents, clean up the building, get some good, nice landscaping out there, bring in some responsible households, and essentially turn the building around, and inevitably, somebody across the street, down the block, a few blocks away would say, look, I'm sick and tired of being sick and tired, and I love what you've done with that building.
They took notice and took stock.
They took notice and said, well, will you manage my building too? And it has been like that. We moved to Chicago in 2001, and it has been like that since 2001. We have grown, and today we are the largest tenant placement firm on the south side of Chicago. We are the fastest growing property management firm on the south side of Chicago, and we have done little to no advertising. This is as a result of our continued performance and essentially word of mouth. People have just seen that we are very good at managing apartment buildings, and we've grown as a result.
Okay. So your work speaks for itself. What you've done speaks for itself, and people take notice.
I think so. I think so. And we, really what I'm passionate about, at this point we've been in the property management business for 8 years.
Okay.
And I'm personally very passionate about helping people, helping families. And, we place somewhere between 80 to 100 households in what used to live in terrible apartments or slum landlords where they couldn't get anything fixed, or the landlord couldn't keep the heat on, or lost the building, and we place probably 80 to 100 families a month in the housing. 80 to 100 per month.
That's fantastic.
We place in the good quality housing with responsible landlords, with prompt service, and so I'm passionate about being able to help families.
Okay.
And help landlords, owners. This is a tough,
it's a two-way street.
Absolutely, this is a tough housing market for landlords right now, and we are able to offer landlords for a reasonable price a service where, not only is it convenient, meaning we're going to handle the day-to-day rent collection activities, groundskeeping, maintenance requests, but you're also going to have the expertise of a professional property manager involved in the day-to-day decisions. And I can't tell you, every day, every single day right now, I have a conversation